Hello and welcome to ABW. I know it's 2 days in a row that you're getting sweet content from us. And well, we've signed a player. Unlike the last couple of players that have come in, we actually know something about this guy. It's not just Kris who's been watching the Belgian league, can tell us about Lokonga. We've signed Ben White, £50 million. I believe that is the fee that his exceedingly short agent has. If anybody's seen the picture, it's worth a look at. Ben White is only 6 foot tall, which we'll probably go through at some point about his attributes. But the £50 million man has come in from Brighton. You may anticipate this could be a monologue just by me, someone who has followed Brighton for the best part of nearly 2 decades. However, I am joined by somebody else, and I've mentioned him already. It is Kris. Kris, how's it going?
Josh, I'm good. It's good to chat to you again. It's been a while. I'm a little sore, I'm not going to lie, and technically 46 minutes late for our planned rendezvous this evening, but we won't tell anyone that, hey?
No, we won't mention that at all. And he's not sore for the reasons you think, ladies and gentlemen. It is completely unrelated to Ben White and his new shirt number 4, taken from a certain player who has yet to have it. Or yet to wear it, shall we say, for the Arsenal. But we'll start with where I think we saw Ben White come to large and where certainly the media started pushing in on him. Because let's say he spent some time at Newport County on loan in League 2 and then in League 1 at Peterborough United, I think off the top of my head. Everybody then mentioned him in the Championship. And Kris, you saw a lot of him at Leeds under Bielsa. Talk us through what you saw as a player then, one that was lauded to be going to Liverpool at the end of that season.
Yeah, so I must confess, I hold my hands up and say that, as you know, Josh, part of our Hipsters pod is Ross Bramble, and Ross is very much the man when it comes to the Championship. So he had sort of far more knowledge of the Championship than me. But one club I did follow quite closely in that league, there was kind of 4 or 5 clubs that I kept an eye on, but Leeds was one of those clubs that I did keep a close eye on for a couple of reasons. Mainly, one of the streamers that I watch on Twitch is a very big Leeds fan, so naturally you just kind of follow teams that other people that you follow support. And I started to watch them because I really wanted to see the Bielsa thing, because as you probably know, he managed in France twice, and there's a little bit of a myth about Bielsa about how simply angelic and wonderful he is. And don't get me wrong, I don't think he's on Pep levels for my dislike, but he's there's a little bit about him that maybe is a bit overblown, shall we say.
I mean, did he strictly, just to pick you up on one thing, did he strictly manage 2 clubs in France? Because did he even manage a Marseille game?
No, that's actually fair. That's probably fair. I think it's more we know for his time at Lille. But yeah, he didn't technically. For those who don't know, he took the Marseille job and then kind of didn't take the Marseille job. He agreed to it.
7 days?
Then,
7 days?
It was almost like for the older listeners amongst us, David Unsworth, remember him? He signed for Aston Villa from Everton, drove up the motorway, turned round and decided halfway through he wasn't going to stay and kind of went back. But so long and short, I watched him at Leeds quite a lot. And the thing I noticed about him, there was a couple of players there. The 2 that really stood out for me was him and Harrison, the winger, because I'd seen a lot of him at New York City FC when he was under Patrick Vieira. So they were the 2 players I kept an eye on. And Harrison was a player that I sort of saw a lot of upsides. I thought he'd do well in the Premier League. But Ben White was just one of those players who he's got a very calm sort of presence about him, but he's a very calm leader. And for a man so young, and for a player who, going to Leeds under a coach like Bielsa, it's whether you rate Bielsa or not, the one thing you're going to have to do under him is work bloody hard and adapt very quickly. And Ben White is, he's a what you call a local lad. He's a sort of a classic English footballer in the sense that, as you said, he'd come through the ranks at a lower league. But the one thing that separates him from a lot of English footballers is he's got that Rio Ferdinand about him. He's got that ability to take the ball on, to bring the ball out of defence, to play multiple positions, to look very comfortable in whatever he's asked to do. And he adapts very quickly. And again, much like Ferdinand, he's made great strides at a really short space of time. And the thing that I really liked about him at Leeds, like I say, as well as that leadership, is that ability to sort of work himself into different positions and play different positions without necessarily being in the position, if you see what I mean. So he's, as you'll come on to, he's known as a centre back because that's his best position. There is this thing going around the internet that he can play right back, left back, central, defensive midfield, etc., and so on, which I know you'll touch on, so I won't steal your thunder. But the one thing he has got is adaptability. If he is pulled out if he's pulled out to the right hand side, he defends just as well as he does as a centre back. If he brings the ball into midfield, he's not the sort of player that if he gets tackled, he'll then suddenly look like a fish out of water and panic. He's a player who'll just adapt into the position he's in on the pitch. Declan Rice does it very well at West Ham as well. He's another player that does it well. So I think we're getting a player that has got a lot of upsides. And I do have to publicly, I tweeted it earlier on, I do have to publicly hold my hands up here and say when David Ornstein and a few other journalists tweeted it, I called bullshit. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was absolute twaddle. I thought it was paper talk. I thought it was clickbait. I got to hold my hands up. The club clearly identified him. I don't know what the final fee was. Are we talking 50 million?
It is 50 million is what his agent has said, has dubbed him the 50 million pound man. So, yeah, we know from a Brighton point of view, when Tony Bloom is putting his cards on the table in metaphorically and physically, because it's where he's made a lot of his money, is on the poker table, that's what he's getting. He knows what he's got in his hands. He's going to demand. I would imagine in the next couple of years, if Brighton keep doing this, selling a lot of players, he'll get a similar reputation to Daniel Levy. He is very much he will get that for his player, and he will gamble for it. Bearing in mind, last summer, people were offering Leeds offered £15 million for Ben White to take him permanently. And Tony Bloom went, no. Bearing in mind, this is a player that was a complete unknown quantity in the Premier League. Tony Bloom went, no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And look what he's managed to turn of a profit. In 12 months, he said, no. And this is a kid that has played every game for Leeds last season, every game for Brighton this season.
Yeah.
And I would say Leeds fans absolutely adored him when he was there. One thing from watching him, though, I would say whatever you see in kind of a formation grid it's the thing for Bielsa generally is ignore that, because the players may say they're in a 4-4-2. They're never that under Bielsa. He basically played every position that you listed there at some point during a 90 minutes, because that's what Bielsa did. And he spent a lot of time very close to Calvin Phillips as well, who I think was another player that had slowly got through.
Yeah.
A lot of support for him in that moment allowed him to push on and sit back as well, generally. But I will pick up from, obviously his then 12 months, his rise to, I think surprisingly for a lot of people at Brighton, player of the year. Even at the end of season awards, people didn't necessarily think he was the player of the year. Talks of Leeds fans getting hold of that poll, a bit like Arsenal fans, when any poll is available has got an Arsenal option on it as correct a decision or not as it should be if that person won, or whoever that is involved in Arsenal should win particular poll. The same's right, I think, for Ben White as well. In terms of the positions he played in last season, one thing I will start and get straight very quickly is he started the season in midfield. He was the partner to Basuma. And that's where he was kind of seen, and that's where I kind of expected him to play, that kind of 6 or 4, depending on your regional specifics of what you may call a holding midfielder, which I think is very interesting with his the shirt number he has ended up with as well. That might be there as an option, but he then, due to injuries, and that's not injuries to him, obviously, just stated he played every game, he moved around a bit. Right back was, from memory, the gap between Tariq Lamptey's 2 injuries. He went out onto the right back position. But then it was seen that Joel Veltman, people will know him from his Ajax days. He is a centre-back or a right-back, and they basically switched places. And Veltman was realised he was a revelation at right-back or right-wing-back, for Brighton. They play 3 at the back. That's another thing, another caveat we should put, that in terms of statistics, if you look at them, he's got 2 colleagues at the back with him.
Yeah.
That's whereas I think this will be a bit more of not a heralding a £50 million centre back. This is more of just, there's a lot of mistruths that have come out. I'm always putting like a tinfoil hat on, but in fact, it might be the other people that need to put a tinfoil hat on. But yeah, in terms of his centre back, as you say, he is very calm on the ball. You generally don't notice what he's doing. Necessarily, a bit like a Mesut Ozil, Michael Carrick. There's a generation of players that you can pick out that's watch back and you'll see what he does. Loves a pass into the channel to an overlapping right back or right wing back or winger. That's the other thing that we've got to kind of think of, how does Ben White look in this side? Because... well, looking at it now, who's our right back probably going to be? Calum Chambers, first choice?
Seems that way at the moment, doesn't it?
And I can't see Calum Chambers being as effective as, say, Tariq Lamptey going forward.
No.
So then is that ball in for Nicolas Pepe? Well, we're talking about a man going outside to a man who wants to go inside. I think it will be interesting to what we see there. But in terms of, I think some people have gone through his stats. I think for me, the key one to look at is his interceptions. Just tells you this is a guy that knows how to read the game. Yeah. And I think, Kris, when you look at what we do, I think we're missing a player that can read the game in the back 4.
Yeah.
I think in terms of a player like Rob Holding, he's great. He's had a great season, I think, last season. But there is always an option to upgrade. The one thing I think Ben White might struggle with is balls in the air.
Yeah, aerial ability.
Aerial ability. It's not his strong point. He could get away with it in the Brighton side because with 3 centre-backs, one of them's Lewis Dunk. I think we can all say we know what Lewis Dunk's like in the air, and we can certainly say what Adam Webster's like because he scored 2 goals against us. I think not last season, the season before, he scored 2 goals against us. So I think that I would say Dan Burn, but Dan Burn's actually awful in the air.
For a guy so tall.
Height does not translate. He just takes everything on his chest. He is rubbish in the air. A bit like Per Mertesacker was. I'm sure we can all remember how bad Per was in the air for someone so tall.
He was good attacking corners, but he wasn't good defensively, was he, ironically?
It was one of those that maybe he just knew that if he wins a header, chances are he's heading it down, and that's not great for a defender. You want to be heading it up and away.
He had a 50p head a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. But I think in terms of Ben White, it's one for us to be excited with. Kris, how do you think the back 4 will now integrate? Do you think we'll move to a back 3, or do you think Mikel's set with what he wants?
I really genuinely sort of concerned, excited, intrigued, fascinated, worried about. They're all the words I am about this season, because I do want to. I'm kind of turning over a slightly new leaf with Mikel this year. Like, I was a little bit critical last year. I'm not gonna change my views on last year. I stand by them. I do think he got found out quite badly last year, and I do still think his man management work has got to be done, and his in-game tactics needs a lot of work. But I do feel like, at least in his head, he's got a plan. Now, what that plan is, we're all kind of sat here quietly waiting to see. And you can bet your ass if we lose to Spurs or Chelsea, the fan base is going to, picket line down his road and set fire to his house, metaphorically, of course. So I look forward to that. But they're friendlies, and the one thing that we do look a little bit more in pre-season is fluid. But largely in pre-season, if I'm not mistaken, we've played 4-2-3-1, which I have always thought is our best system, because our best system, I think, is actually 2 strikers, because then you get the best out of Lacazette and Aubameyang's qualities together. But he seems reluctant to do that. And if you do that, you can't really play Pepe, Smith Rowe and Saka, which he clearly wants to do. So if you're going to go with one centre forward and you're going to go with those 3 forward players, Thomas Partey is an automatic starter. You've then realistically got a choice. As you say, do you have a back 3 with one holding midfielder, or do you play a kind of a 4-2-3-1, but you say to Partey, if Ben White, for example, steps into midfield, Partey drops deep. I'm just wondering, like, is Mikel looking at Ben White as the interview suggests he's looking at him as a centre-back. I want to see him as a centre-back because I think him and Gabriel probably is the future. But I'm also kind of intrigued to see what him and Holding is going to be like, because I imagine that's who are going to start the season, because Pablo Mari, I think, has his qualities, but I wouldn't necessarily see him as a first starter. And I think Gabriel's still injured, isn't he? So you'd imagine it's going to be a 2, and you'd imagine it'll be Holding and White, with, as you say, with Chambers one side and Kieran Tierney down the other side. But that said, Kieran Tierney can play centre back, can't he? I think he's wasted as a centre back, but it does allow you to get Tavares into the play. And let's be absolutely crystal clear here. Based upon what I've seen, Tavares is a wing back. He's a converted winger, isn't he? He's not a left back. He's your archetypal Andre Santos, but slim and good. He's your Silvinho. He's not a player who's going to excel defensively. No. He's a player who's going to get rinsed once or twice going the other way, but he will offer you a threat going forward. So maybe Mikel's going to look at that. But for me, if you have a back 3 and you play Ben White as a 3, I think, like you said, if you had a Tariq Lamptey and you had a Tierney / Tavares on the other side, I like that because it's balanced. It's just my OCD, but even at Sunday League level, if I have attacking fullbacks, I want 2 exactly the same on both sides. I don't want one that's sort of quite good defensively like Chambers, but also can cross the ball, and then another one like Tavares who's just gone 90 minutes. So I'm intrigued. So I know I haven't really answered your question there, but
but I think I'm not going to help answering it either.
No, we've got to wait and see, but a 2 makes sense, doesn't it, really? Yeah,
we have that. And I think that's another thing that you kind of lined up. We've got a central striker, then we've got the 3 behind that striker, and then we've got Partey. And then we've got this unknown in our midfield as well, that kind of 6 or 4.
Are we going to turn
I'm not going to mention that Well, I'm not necessarily going to mention that name, but
no, I've just done it.
We're talking about, as I mentioned when I started the show, Graham Potter saw Ben White starting in midfield next to Yves Bissouma. And I know we cried out for Yves Bissouma as a fan base.
I didn't. I'm just going to say that now. I'm just going to nail my colours to the mast.
Royal we.
Royal
we. That he should come in. And there is something in it when the rumours were really picking up, because agreed, as a Brighton fan as well, for 5 seasons, I've seen Lewis Dunk linked with a move away, and every summer he has signed a brand new deal. The one summer he's not linked with a move away, Ben White is. So for me, way things have been going, and all the talk that Ben White had said before the summer, and probably before Arsenal would even make contact, was he wanted to settle. He's working under a great manager. Let's move on. Spent three of his last 3 seasons at Brighton away from the club on loan. It will be a 5th club in 5 seasons for him. So it was going to go one of 2 ways. Either settled or he's actually looking to settle somewhere else. And when it first came through, I was a bit like, well, we've got a glut of centre-backs. Gabriel is the probably obvious choice that he'd start next to, with Marie and Holding being kind of reserved for the more physical teams that we play against. Because I think that's where they excel massively. But there is that option of, if we don't get our choice in midfield, does he slot in there? Does he come into that position perhaps? And he's got all the attributes to play there. And arguably, if you're looking for that kind of player in there, Ben White fits the bill. It's just the fact that he's played the majority of his games at centre-back this season.
That's my worry, though, because I'm sure other clubs do this. I'm sure it's not just Arsenal, but obviously Arsenal are the club we follow, so we notice it more. Why do you remember that sketch from the? You're not too old for the Fast Show, are you? Too young. Sorry.
No, I am just about okay.
You roughly remember it. So for those who may not have seen it, or if I'm sure you'll remember this when I say it, there was a sketch with one of the characters, and it was like a husband and wife. And the sketch would be the wife would be beavering away in the kitchen, and the husband would come in, and she would turn to the husband and go, "Did you get the carrots, love?" And the husband would have a bag, and he'd go, "Better than that. I got some olive oil, a photograph of the Titanic, a copy of Romeo and Juliet on DVD, and some sesame seeds." And that's like Arsenal in the transfer market. It's like, what do we need? An attacking midfielder. So we'll go buy centre-back. But we'll not only go and buy a centre-back, we'll then get this high-quality centre-back and we'll put him in midfield. And I don't understand why we can't just buy players that are naturally gifted in the positions that they join in and the positions that they've excelled at other clubs in. Why can't we play them in that position? I mean, you could go through the team. Aubameyang is not a left winger. Let's play him at left wing. Lacazette is a central striker. Let's play him at number 10. You know, Kieran Tierney is a fantastic left back. Let's move him inside and convert him into a centre back. I mean, we're only one injury away from Bernd Leno lining up at left back. I mean, it's just, do you know what I mean? I get the appeal of having players who are multi-positioned. I get it. I do. But you've played Sunday League, you know, everyone has that player in the Sunday League team that is a little bit shit, but he can play like 6 positions. So you have him in the squad just to fill in. You know, Ben White's not that. He's a high quality elite English centre half. Play the guy at centre half. So I personally wouldn't. I would still go and get the midfielder. I mean, everyone knows who I want alongside Thomas Partey. The links with Bruno Guimaraes are interesting because he's an out-and-out defensive midfielder. Partey is not. He wants to be a creative, you know, Vieira type. He wants to travel with the ball. He wants to get in the final third. He wants to shoot, even though he's not very good at it. So, you know, yes, Ben White can step out of defence and into midfield, but that's what I want him to do. I want him to step out and then release the ball and then drop back. I don't want him to play in midfield and have to drop back into defence.
Yeah, he's a player that's not, in theory, he shouldn't worry any of us when he's got the ball at his feet. If you're worried when Ben White picks up the ball and he's just on the edge of his 18-yard box, unfortunately, your nerves have been ruined by watching Arsenal play out for the back for about 5 to 10 years. Yeah, that's what that is doing. That's not an incitement on this particular player. He knows how to play out from the back. If anybody has seen the goalkeeper distribution stats, and that's an interesting one for a Friday night to have a look through.
That's a night out, isn't it?
That's a night out. For Brighton, you'll know that the goalkeepers there barely kick it further than 30 yards. They're always playing out to the centre-backs, and it's building from there. So he knows how to deal with that. He's done it under pressure. It's just a case of getting runners around him, so he's got an option to get rid of it. And get rid of it, I mean, play it well with quality.
Distribute it
rather than hoof it into a Z. But he's not adverse to doing that as well. I think that's the key bit of any good player, that although they may have directions from the manager, they know when to get rid as well.
Because sometimes you need to get rid, you know.
It's a common myth. To get rid.
Yeah, ask people like Harry Maguire. I mean, you know, sometimes you just need to get rid. Even the best centre-backs, like Chiellini and Bonucci, they did it all tournament for Italy. You know, Bonucci celebrates a clearance like it's a goal, doesn't he? So,
absolutely. And I think that's one of the key things we'll get from Ben White. He won't necessarily be super shiny centre-back. He's not going to be the guy that you'll go, oh my God, when we get a corner, he's going to give us like 5 goals a season from there. He's not going to be doing that. He might be playing some long-reaching balls a bit like David Luiz, but he's not got that same kind of I'd say on-field and off-field charisma that David Luiz has, that makes him larger than life.
Yeah.
But I think he fits that role very well in terms of a player that I think Arteta might trust if Gabriel and Pablo Mari are out injured to play on the left side of defence.
Do you reckon he'll fit the dressing room as well?
I think so.
Based on his character at Leeds, I think he'll fit in. Like I say, he was very popular in the Leeds dressing room. Bielsa relied on him. I think he did. I think he was one of the guys who chased people up for the fines and all that jazz at Leeds. I think it's him and Luke Ayling. So He strikes me as a guy who will fit, because we've got less. I don't want to say the English core all over again, because that ended quite badly. But it does appear that he's going to have the likes of Holding and Tierney and Smith Rowe. So there is a bit of a core of local lads there, isn't there? So I think he'll fit in well with that group.
Definitely. And he's originally from Southampton. Well, he's from Poole, actually. Yeah. So Dorset, for any locals out there. So
we won't hold that against him.
No, his daddy probably owns a yacht club, but we won't go that far. Anybody's been to Poole, it's very highfalutin. But yeah, I think in terms of he'll get that kind of group that's there. He'll be slightly older than some of them. Fits like a good age profile for us. But yeah, he got on very well with the people that were at Leeds. I'd say to the point where one of the reasons why it took us so long to announce it, guess who we was on holiday with? Calvin Phillips.
Yeah, they
was on holiday in Mykonos with Calvin Phillips for ages, and then went back to Italy with him as well. And they've been all over the shop together. And I think that's one thing that we will see. Obviously, Agent Saka has been told, I think, in the latest Athletic article, that he was key relaying information back to Arteta. And I think when you listen to everything that came out from the England camp, there were 2 players that surprised everybody that turned up to England duty. One of them was Bukayo Saka, and the other one was Ben White.
Yeah,
no one realised literally how good he was, and I think that's something that £50 million. I think this is a guy that is 23 now, turns 24 in October. Arguably, he's a centre back that can play till 32, 33, maybe even longer. It's £5 million a year if we keep him for a decade, and I think when you look at it in that context, I think it could look to be a bargain. Especially compared to other English players. Man City obviously didn't help with when they were buying up a lot of English talent. But, United kind of started it. Who would have said that 8 years ago, £35 million for a teenage fullback from Southampton would now look to be £35 million for a teenage fullback? You'd be like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point.
People will pay it. And the Harry Maguire thing kind of moved everything on. Kyle Walker was £50 million. Trying to think who else was a lot of money. But yeah, they're fullbacks that they paid a lot of money for. There's John Stones was the other one I was thinking of.
Wan-Bissaka? Was that the one you were referring to?
Yeah, Wan-Bissaka, another £50 million player.
Yeah.
It's the going rate now for an English player that's in their early 20s going to a team of a certain stature.
And fullbacks in general across Europe are pricey.
Fullbacks in general are pricey. Centre backs are going to get pricey as well. Wait till you hear how much Man United paid for, albeit a World Cup winner, but one who only had 1 year left on his contract.
Exactly, that's been swept under the rug. And anyone who doubts Raphael Varane is an idiot. He is fantastic. And
he's an excellent player, but I will also say you can. Is it hard to say you've overpaid for a player that's also still very good?
No, not at all.
Yeah, no. I think that is one that they have overpaid. They won't regret it, but they have overpaid for him.
Yeah, particularly when the alternatives are Eric Bailly and Lindelof, and they've upgraded. But it does make me laugh when you talk about Maguire with Varane. That's the most unusual duo I've ever heard. But yeah,
definitely. But I think in terms of talking through Ben White anyway, listener for behind the scenes of ABW, we've got another podcast to record straight after this because we're absolute pros, and we're going to do an end up with a little intermission for ourselves and then back to it, and we'll switch places. But Kris, thank you for joining me to talk through Ben White. And I would say to anybody, any of our listeners, of course, if they do want any more information on him, I would say listen to people who have watched him. And when I say watch him from a Brighton fan perspective, not a casual. And they will tell you everything you need to know about Ben White. And there are many good ones out there. Obviously, your colleague at French Football Weekly, Jez, has watched him a lot. I'm sad that I won't see him at the Amex next season, but obviously I will see him for at least one game when he comes to join. But I would say, I think I'll finish that by saying Ben White's last game for Brighton was against Arsenal at the Emirates. And who would have known how apt that he is switching blue and white for red and white. And we've been APW. Thank you and good night.